Hello, let's see here. Let me get that link.
It says we're live.
We are live now. I've put it up there. Hey, it's Russ Payne with Ludonarrative Dissidents, and we are live. Our monthly live stream. It'd help if I could spell. I'm going on our Discord and be like, hey, by the way, our live stream. And let's see here. Post actually, yeah. Oops.
Yeah, they don't actually.
Takes a minute for people to sign up, anyways. Yeah.
Sure. I'm just looking at this. I'm like, they don't actually sell bourbon at the Blanton's website, huh? Oh, Blanton's store. Let's see what's in Blanton's store.
So yeah, for our anybody watching right now, we were just talking about a friend of mine, Aaron, from RPPR, brought in a bottle of Blanton's bourbon last night, and it is very good bourbon, and I was telling Greg about it. And
they don't seem to sell bourbon on the Blanton's bourbon.
Well, because legal laws, shipping liquor to possibly minors, kind of a thing. So anyways, let me pull up my...
Lots of places are willing to sell me bourbon online.
Well, not the distiller itself, yes. So yeah, Blanton's looks very good. Yeah. So anyways, it's good bourbon if you want to get it. But and see, each bottle has a different little thing of a horseback rider. So if you get all of them, you could do a whole Mobius strip thing of them.
So Ross, you should send them an email and see if they want to sponsor the pod, and we can have them. We can refer them to James, so that when they call, they're like, "So what is Ludonarrative Dissidents?" And James can just give them the old razzle dazzle.
Oh yes, we're quite sophisticated talking about friendship and camaraderie. Yes,
you can talk about you can talk Americans into anything with a British accent.
It's true.
Yes, we are a podcast of taste and distinction.
Ooh, see, you're selling it. All right.
What is a Chad chin?
Yeah.
Is that Chad in the sense of the
like the meme?
That Chad, not the Kilroy was here Chad. Drawn figure.
Yeah, I think it's this that I think you're saying you have this kind of chin, Greg. So
I don't know.
But anyway,
if anything, I have a Punch from Punch and Judy chin.
Oh yeah, that's
you see it, huh? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But we should get into this because James has some stuff to share.
We went to Pompeii. I mean, Ross got to share his holiday pics. I thought I'd share some of mine.
I mean, Pompeii's ripe for gaming fodder. Like, geez.
Pretty much, yeah. It's. I mean, that's why I was thinking about it. It's. I mean, strange we were talking about bourbon because it was the Bourbons rather, who are largely responsible for a lot of the excavations of Pompeii and Herculaneum, the French noble family who, at the time in the 18th century, were ruling large chunks of Italy. So that first picture, that is Mount Vesuvius from the terrace of the hotel that we were staying in, called La Medusa. I'm not quite sure why you would call a hotel La Medusa, wrong side of the business card, La Medusa, which is very nice. Heartily recommended.
Because you want to be freaking cool. Have you heard about this American thing called being cool, James?
I have, yes. But the thing is, it's Italy. I mean, I'm aware that, I think the majority of our audience, probably Americans, for this. In the UK, we are surrounded by history every day. We're in fact surrounded by Roman history. I live in London. Just in the last few months, I have taken my 15-year-old classics-obsessed child to see the remains of the Roman bathhouse under an office block in Billingsgate, central London. The Temple of... excuse me. I'm blanking on the name. God of Money. It was one of the Roman secret cults. Anyway, there's a temple to him underneath the Bloomberg building in the city of London.
It's a little on the nose, don't you think?
Yeah. The Roman amphitheatre that they have discovered underneath the Guildhall in central London. bits of the Roman walls, and this is just in London itself. Londinium. You go to Italy, and this stuff's just everywhere. They grow up with it. It's they're almost bored of it. Whereas we turn up and we go, oh my goodness, all these statues, and they go, you see school trips going around Pompeii. They could care less. School trips generally. Anyway, but that's Vesuvius. Vesuvius is an active volcano. I thought it was extinct or at least dormant. It's not. It's active. It pops off about 3 or 4 times a century, though it has not gone off since 1944.
So we're due.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It seems the volcano itself seems quite stable at the moment, but this is looking north from the hotel to Vesuvius. And when Vesuvius went off in AD 79, the prevailing winds were blowing southeast, as they tend to. But there's a caldera which you can just see in this to the left, which that's the Bay of Naples there, and you can see it curves around to the left. That's Naples. To the east, to the west of Naples, there's a caldera. One of those magma chamber underground. That thing's vibrating at the moment. They've had tremors for the last couple of months. The ground is rising and falling, and there is a chance that may well pop off at some point, which would be interesting. And I suspect they've made about as many preparations for that as the Romans did for the eruption of Vesuvius in AD 79. Let's look at some pictures. Let's click on the right window so that we were saying Via Nocera. It looks very tranquil. It looks very kind of forested. This whole area is very built up. This kind of Via Nocera there's this potty little railway station with some. All the trains have awful graffiti all over them. I mean, just the quality is bad. I'm not saying the content is bad. The quality is very bad. The Roman graffiti has passed down for us from 2,000 years.
It's not refined like
modern
American New York subway graffiti, which is
it's probably inspired by.
But it's a lot of cheap knockoff.
Yeah, a lot of the architecture
Italy,
in the area is this kind of 4-5.
Let me just say this out loud to Italy: you don't need to rip off America. Find your own graffiti. Free yourself from trying to duplicate what we're doing, which has already probably been watered down by filthy commerce.
Yeah,
free yourself.
We'll come on to this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pompeii at this point, this is the basilica. You walk in from the west of Pompeii from this potty little railway station, up a hill past the baths, which were sadly closed. We went 2 or 3 years ago as a family. This time it was myself, my mother-in-law, who has always wanted to visit Pompeii, never had the chance, and decided that this was the time, and my classics obsessed 15-year-old. The last time we went, we did the bathhouse first of all, and notable for my wife looking at the mosaic tile floor and going, look at all the dolphins, and said at the time, classics obsessed 12 or 13-year-old going, Mum, those aren't dolphins, those are dicks. Because
the classic winged dicks.
Why
do I know about this?
There's a level of detail, but this is the basilica, which is you go up and the basilica is on your right as you pass in, which it was the council offices essentially. Still quite a lot still standing. This is a fast food stall. There are a lot of these around. The holes are big pots. And there's insulating qualities to them, so you could keep stuff cool in there, but you'd also keep stuff warm in there. And this would have been just open onto the street and serving food all the time. It feels amazingly human just to wander past it. I do think they're missing a trick, not actually having one operating or rebuilding one. Bit of a mosaic. I love this bear. I'm going to zoom in on the bear because I've not seen this one before, and I think one should see more of this bear.
That's a fine bear.
That's a fine bear, and it doesn't say have, it says Ave, which is hi there, or salutations, or that kind of thing. Just like you walk into the house and there's a bear going hi. It says something about the type of the house that you've just entered. There's a lot of these mosaics around.
It's a house that says, I'm welcoming, but don't push me.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yes. Did you bring marmalade sandwiches? every so often down the streets, there are these little kind of cisterns, and some of them still work. It's local water piped in. Obviously, it's modern piping, but you can fill up your water bottles from them just as the Romans would have done. And that's an amazing moment of connection. You just feel people have been drinking out of this tap for 2,000. Well, they haven't actually, because it was covered up with 4 meters of ash until they
were not continuously, but 2,000 years ago they were
2,000 years ago.
And
Yes,
now we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of these.
Those aren't lead pipes, are they?
I am told. I mean, I would guess probably not. I'm told actually lead pipes are not really the problem. It's when the lead gets vaporized. That's when you need to start worrying. Like, for example, putting it in petrol so that it comes out of your car exhaust, as we did for much of the 20th century. Thank God we've stopped that.
Yeah, joke. You've heard the lead gas theory, right?
Oh yeah,
about crime.
Mm-hmm.
At that, yeah. So
anyway,
I just recently found out that the pipes into my house that I thought were lead are not actually lead. They were just filthy.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The plumber came in. I'm like, these are lead pipes, right? He's like, no, man, that's a plastic sheathing covered in, I'd say probably 30 years of grime.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is one of the main drags in Pompeii. As you can see, the weather wasn't fantastic. You can see the cart tracks in the middle of the street. Those are tracks worn by centuries of carts running down the middle of the street. And the story about them being the same width as railway tracks today is partly true. There are railway tracks that are the same width, but certain things have certainly inherited that width. And most of these down the side would have been shops. They're small things. The upper story would have been wood. 2-story dwellings, so the wood's obviously completely gone. But the thing about Pompeii is it feels like a ruin. You get the sense of it as a town, as a floor plan, as a town plan, but you don't really, for most of it, get a sense of it being operational. And there are moments where you do, when you walk into the Forum, for example. This would have been painted. This is the interior of one of the things, internal decoration. But I love the fact that the plasterworks survived so well. So you walk into the Forum and it is just full of tourists, but it's heaving. There's 200, 300, 400 people in there, and you just think, yeah, this is how it would have been. But an awful lot of it is just not really there. What is there? This is the theatre, which we completely missed the first time. Pompeii is big. It was like 12, 15,000 people. It's a decent sized town, quite an opulent, not opulent, but reasonably well-off town. Had 2 theatres in the same complex. This is the large theatre. That's a panorama. Bored child of mine on the left. And the acoustics are they still use this for performances. The acoustics are stunning. You stand at the center of the stage and you speak out, and you just get the sense of the auditorium and the way the sound spreads. Wonderful. That's a view from on top. What you can see to top left, that was the gladiator barracks, in fact, with a green area that was used also for another panorama, because I like doing panoramas. There we go, closer look. The green area also used for kind of political displays and stuff like that. But that's how close the modern town is to Pompeii. It's literally, it's right up to the edge. Pompeii's not in the middle of nowhere and kind of secluded. It's like, no, it's right in the middle of a very urban bit of Italy. It's
I remember
the outskirts
this
of Naples
from a trip to Rome, where the ancient Roman ruins are buried right there. And it's like, it's in the middle of town. We just found this new one. We're digging it up. So everyone's pissed because the traffic has gotten even worse than normal Roman traffic, which you should not be behind the wheel in Rome unless you have the utmost contempt for human life, both others and your own. It's one of the... Italy is the only place where driving on the highway, I've seen a mirror smack another mirror. And Italy is the only place where I've been in a car where the driver moved so close to a pedestrian that her skirt flew up.
Wow.
It's...
Yeah.
We do have a question. Was Pompeii like a resort town?
Kind of. I mean, it was on the coast. Very much, and a bunch of people escaping from the town went down to the beach. And in fact, Pliny the Elder The great general, the great writer, thinker, creator of the first encyclopedia, actually got a boat and sailed from Naples and brought it round onto the beach and went on to rescue people and had a heart attack and died. He was, to give him his due, he was quite old and fat at the time and not in good health at all. But
he still went out like
I know
boss,
he went to go and try and rescue people, which an awful, very few others did.
I hope I do that when I'm old.
Yeah, it's and we know about this because his nephew, Pliny the Younger, wrote about it about 15 years later. I'm not sure Pliny the Younger was actually there. But anyway, so yeah, it was on because we'll come on to the real result, which was Herculaneum.
This could just be some historian saying, yeah, my uncle was a stone cold hero. Even though he was old and blobby, he went to save those people. And it's like, do you have receipts? Do we have any? Can anyone who was saved by him come forward and say you were saved by a fat blobby historian? And
the modern equivalent, I think, is people whose parents or grandparents or uncles or whatever liberated Belsen. Because the number of people I know whose uncles liberated Belsen, I mean, Belsen was evidently, a mid-sized industrial town based on that. And yes, some of them, it's in the historical record they did, and others just kind of maybe drove past Belsen. I will move on.
Yeah.
This is the interior one of the shops, just to give you an idea of the kind of size. Very standard, very standard. This is looking into the forum back towards the basilica. Again, you get a sense of once there are people there, it comes alive. Otherwise, it's just architecture, most of it ruined. These Roman walls, I love this. You see a lot of this, just square bricks, but they're laid in this diagonal pattern. And I don't know if it's for strength. I guess there's a stability there. Perhaps, it's a volcanic area. I guess there are tremors. This may be more stable because they're also the Roman bricks, which are very flat and overlay like that. I have this weird obsession with walls. So
ask a stonemason.
Yes. This was a dessert one evening in the hotel. Another dessert.
Is that what they called it to you, James? I'm like, that doesn't look like a dessert. That looks like
there's a lot of fruit there. It looks.
It's a fruit. They called that a soft tart. Now, in England, if you call someone a soft tart, you're likely to get your face pushed in.
Fighting words.
But it was delicious. I have to say. So anyway, this is Herculaneum, and Herculaneum absolutely was a resort town. Herculaneum was actually discovered first. Herculaneum's very close to Vesuvius. It's like 2 miles away. And whereas Pompeii, about 4 or 5 miles away, got 4 meters of ash and pumice and lava. Because when Vesuvius went off, the number, I want to say the 10,000 Hiroshimas was the power it went off. Rocks 20 miles up in the sky. It was a major explosion. So Pompeii, 4 or 5 miles away, gets 4 meters of ash. Herculaneum, 2 miles away and on the coast, gets 14 meters of lava and ash, and is buried very deeply. But the Bourbons in the early 18th century heard this story that there's this area out south of Naples where if you dig a well, you find statues. So they went and dug some wells, and then they got to the bottoms of the wells and they dug sideways and they found a theater. I mean, full excavation. It's not like, here's a dungeon with a theater. No, you have to dig out everything.
Oh my God, imagine how Dungeons and Dragons would play if you had to dig from room to room. It's like, there's goblins in this one. God, I'm so fucking tired.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll help us dig.
Everybody's primary stat. That or the gals would be just like, oh, we've been in here so long. Thank you, brave rescuer.
So anyway, as with Pompeii, a lot of stuff was looted. The initial digging was to find stuff and nick it, basically. Then they covered up a lot of that stuff, and then proper digging was done in the late 19th century. That's when it started. Herculaneum is much more recent, and because it was under 14 meters of lava, the level of preservation is incredible. Food was preserved, not edibly, obvious, but there are loaves of preserved bread from Herculaneum, and this was a rich seaside town. Absolutely, that's That's what it was.
Wow.
This is it doesn't look like it. This is a panoramic shot again. Herculaneum, what they've dug up is much smaller. They think it was a smaller town, about 5,000 people. They've only really dug up 3 or 4 streets of it, because the rest is right under the town. You see that wall on the right. Beyond that is Herculano, the modern town. And you can't really dig any further without buying people and saying, yeah, we're just going to knock your house down and then dig down 14 meters, which they're not doing. But it is extraordinary. And again, these are just random snapshots, some of the good ones.
Zoom in.
Just one of the house temples.
Oh yeah, the house.
You know, they would have had a little.
Cool,
it's a little shrine. There'd have been statues of various gods there. Lots of mosaic.
Wow.
It's clear that if you wanted to earn money as an artist in Rome, sculpture was the big deal, then mosaic, and then wall paintings. We will come on to the wall painting. But the wall paintings are just notably less good. If you were a bit crap as an artist, you got to do wall paintings. Speaking of which, that's the original roof over on the left. That's the original ironwork of the roof. Wow. That's been preserved. And that's just above the previous shrine. More kind of wall paintings, tiled floors, not a particularly special house. The thing about Herculaneum, because they've preserved, a lot of the roofs were preserved, they've replaced the rafters and stuff like that, so they are secure now, but it feels lived in. There are certain buildings you walk into and it's like the inhabitants have just stepped out and could come back at any time. It feels like people live here or lived here, whereas Pompeii, you get a sense of how it might have worked as a town. Anyway, so that's one of the gardens within one of the preserved houses. This is, again, more wall paintings. This is a fairly typical level of illustration for a fairly typical room in a house in Herculaneum.
Until this is the wallpaper, it's
this is one of the much larger building. This was set up, I can't remember what it's called, but it was set up by 2 freed slaves, and it's basically a free hall for freed slaves to come and meet, and it's like a clubhouse. Herculaneum takes its name from Hercules, so there's a lot of paintings. Oh, I love a good inscribed tablet. Couldn't read that. I just love the lettering. I'm slightly obsessed by that. There's quite a few of those. But you get these pictures of Hercules everywhere. Hercules and the Adventures of Hercules. I couldn't tell you which one that is, but he's the red bloke. Chick in the helmet, obviously that's Athena. I don't know.
It's probably Hera next to her going, no, this man is trash.
Yeah.
My husband never stepped out on me. He's a liar.
Yeah.
I apologize for the nudity. It's classical art. There's quite a lot of that. And remarkably small cocks, I have to say.
Well, that was the style at the time, because the idea was that a small penis was an indicator of refinement and intelligence, right?
Yeah. No, I've read that. I read that, and a large one meant that you were savage and barbaric and uncivilized. Yeah. Animalistic. So
good thing we don't believe crazy bullshit like that anymore, right? Right?
Yeah.
So someone asking, how's the kerning on those ancient tablets? We will come to that. More paintings. This is a sign that's been preserved outside a wine shop. This was like it, but there's a picture of Hercules. There's the list of the different wines that they serve. We have the red wine, we have the blue wine, and a big thing at the bottom that says Nova, new in stock.
New in stock. This is the wine Hercules would have drank before murdering all those.
Oh, blue wine, of course. It's the wine Dark Sea. Wine. Yeah.
That's Homeric, but it's I don't know. But anyway, again, just some interiors. This is one of the large villas. There are several very large villas. There's a pluvium in the main room. This is the one the water falls into. And it's all part of essentially it's the air conditioning. It moves the air around. It keeps the air fresh. But this feels like a lived-in space. You can see, and I think they've done some careful stuff with the lighting, but it's just so well preserved.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Really lovely. The corner shop. This was another wine shop. It might even be the same wine shop. Apparently, the wine was kept upstairs. But this kind of level of repair, and again, there's the town right there on the right hand side, and they have tunneled into that. You know, they're still excavating. Herculaneum is where they found all the scrolls that they're using AI and advanced imaging to decipher. The good AI, not the bad, not the crap AI.
All right. All right.
So it's really excellent. And along this was a bakery. You can see there's some photographs explaining how things work on the back wall. But the reason I took the photos, those are millstones for grinding the corn. Or rather to have your slaves grind the corn, because man, that's hard work, and no self-respecting Roman would have done that.
Yeah.
When you've got some conquered barbarian who'll do it for you. More of these fast food places, these counters. This was just the style. This was just what it looked like.
Well, and someone in the chat was talking about how, they didn't want to have a fire in everybody's house because they didn't have fire trucks back then. And I'm like, no, this makes sense. Yeah. So you just walk down. Honey, I'm in the mood for pasta. Go down there and get me some with the good olives. You know, the guy's an asshole, but he makes really good olives pasta. Get some of that. Although this is probably, I don't know, when was pasta introduced to Italy? It's so hard to imagine it without.
Oh God, I did some research on this a while ago. I don't think pasta was a big thing at this point.
Was it maybe Marco Polo who brought spaghetti to Italy? I
honestly, I have heard that. I don't know if that's true or not.
It could be. I mean, it's. I mean, Durham wheat is the thing. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just going to say no. I'm just going to say I don't know.
Yeah.
More fast food places. This is my child. She's very big on columns, so I had to take this one. But again, it's a column, and it would have been covered in plaster, but you can see the Roman brickwork there. These very flat bricks, which are really interesting, and they're used for a lot of things, obviously, because they're very stable. More columns. Again, more columns. Again, this is one of the big things. This is if you were smart, you didn't have wall paintings. You had actual carved stuff up on the wall of your villa. And this is, I can't remember who it is having the spear pulled out of them. Might in fact be Hercules once again.
Makes sense.
But I saw on the same trip 2 other versions of that same tablet. I don't know which of them is the original, but clearly there were places just churning this stuff out. You know, there's no mass production on this. But if you've got a bunch of craftsmen, you just go, that one's popular. Do another 3 of those.
Were these carved into like marble, or could this have been fired clay? Because it's like, you create the relief, you make a mold with plaster, and then you fill that with clay, and you just.
These ones would have been carved. I don't know if they did any molding.
I don't think a clay thing would have survived the whole volcano situation.
No, I'm thinking about you use maybe I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. The bread survived, Ross. Clay is tougher than bread.
Touche.
If you're a good baker.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's another one. It's just open at the back, but again, just the sense of the space, the sense of as a place where you could live. I would, if you hired that on what's it called, Airbnb or something like that. You go, I'm not happy about the state of the back wall, but the rest of it, this is interesting. This is very rural.
It also shows like how architecture, was used to adapt your living space for your environment, right? Like you had these skylights because you didn't have glass back then, so you had to make do and also make something that would be suitable for living in summer and in winter. And so and like having the little rainwater collection at the bottom of your skylight. Like I mean it's really interesting if you read up on the architectural history of Rome and stuff like that, really cool stuff. So
should have made houses out of bread.
Right. Well, look, the houses lived. It's just the people didn't live. Yeah, the houses survived just fine.
Should have made the people out of bread.
Yeah.
Anyway. And more mosaics. This one's unusual that you're not actually allowed to walk on it because the floor has warped and it's, you can actually see it's up and down. But the mosaic itself has survived. And they did love their black and white geometric patterns, which are absolutely stunning. More fast food. there's so many. I can't remember how many. I think Pompeii had 58 bakers. That's the number I can remember.
2,000 years ago, this was an Arby's.
Yeah, not far off. And big gardens. It's unclear whether that was kind of a public garden or a garden that you were allowed to look at but not actually enter, or whether those walls would have been a good deal higher. But that's looking over a bunch of the town, and then this is looking from the south wall over the town itself. What's left of it. So again, you can see there's Vesuvius right in the background. It's looming, still looming. And this one, just looking down a bit, those arches at the bottom, those are boat houses. That's where the sea was. It's 700 meters that way now, but that was where the sea was. That was the beach. And in fact, they pulled 300 skeletons out of those boat houses, people sheltering from, because the lava came down about 2 a.m. It was, it is understandable why many people died at Herculaneum. Pompeii, they had a lot more warning. They could have got the hell out. But they're still expecting. They're still doing a lot of work in Herculaneum. I would say if you're going to the area around Naples, if you want to do Pompeii, it's a 3-day thing. Spend a day in Pompeii, spend a day or at least half a day in Herculaneum, and then spend a day at the Naples Archaeological Museum, which I will come on to shortly. We went back to Pompeii for a second day with better weather because it was actually my 15-year-old's birthday. She turned 15. Aww. That is the Temple of Apollo. That's Apollo. He showed up to wish her out. No, he didn't. And there's a corresponding one of, I think, Minerva on the other side. Quite well preserved. But again, it just, Pompeii compared to Herculaneum, it just feels much less alive. It feels very well preserved. We did happen across this quite well preserved villa where they'd actually replanted the garden as it would have been, with Roman style plants, native ones, and QR codes on all of them to tell you about the plants. But it's Roman, so
QR codes.
It's an SPQR code. I thank you.
Hey, all right, that's pretty good.
You played me, James.
Moving along, they do have.
Yeah.
There's one shop. The first time we went to Pompeii, I was bemoaning the fact that they haven't really restored a shop to kind of show how it would have been. And then we came across this one where there's the painted sign.
Wait, okay. Does that say? Am I allowed to say the C word on the stream? Because it looks like it says no cunt.
No, I do not think it says that. Yeah,
I don't think so. I think that's more likely an A. Yeah. I'm not sure. I tried to interpret some of these. But I love these painted ones. The style of lettering is not the same as the style they use on the inscribed tablets.
Sure.
And they wherever you see these signs, they're all using, either there was one family that did all the sign paintings, or there was a very a standard style for the signs. But it's really lovely. And then there's this, and one of the things in Pompeii you don't find in Herculaneum, because there's very famously the bodies of people. They are not the bodies of people. When the people were trapped in the ash and the lava, their bodies decayed and laid void, and which would they then archaeologists then filled with plaster to preserve them. And this is one of those, and presumably this is somebody who sheltered in this fast food outlet essentially, or was working there. One of there's a lot of modern very recent excavations. The BBC did a series. You can't get into them yet, and you need to be booked on a special tour. But again, there are people who died in the bakery and things like that.
Can you imagine 2,000 years from now, our descendants excavating some poor Waffle House employee's void, and we're like, well, we're gonna.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. I was thinking, why would you stay there? And then I remembered during the California fires, there were the fast food workers who were saying, I'm not going to show up. And they're going, if you do not show up for your shift on your restaurant that may be on fire, you will be fired. And you think, well, people are desperate for jobs, and always, that's capitalism. The Roman, 1879 was a capitalist society. This is a large villa. I couldn't tell you which one this is called, but fantastic wall paintings. This is Pompeii again, but these water as well. This is
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at they tried to hide in the bakery because they knew the bread would make it through the air.
Fair enough. So yeah, great wall paintings, semi-erotic wall paintings. But that's a fountain, or that would have been a fountain. And this one is notable. It's got these amazing water courses through the garden. That was a fountain. Damn. That would have, you know, jets. And it's actually a very piece of design.
How? What is forcing the water through there? Is there like a cistern and then a pipe, and so the water pressure?
It may well be a sophisticated system of hydraulics, or it may be slaves. I don't know. And I'm not sure.
I hope it's the hydraulics one.
One can't really judge. You just have to go, this is the way it was. You can't say, oh, we're not going to talk about this because
I feel like
slaves were an absolutely crucial part of the Roman economy. You just have to kind of accept it and move on. More desserts. And then delicious. This is on the way to the Naples Archaeological Museum. This is one of the old city gates with a modern facade over it. But that's medieval. Naples is an insane city. We were ripped off 3 times in an hour by different cab drivers. But this is just some stuff from the museum. This basically the stuff that they've dug up from Pompeii and Herculaneum and the other 2 towns that were buried. Most of it has ended up. The stuff that's not in private collections has ended up here. So you've got fantastic stuff. This is that my daughter is there for scale. She does not give you an idea of how big that thing is because she's about 4 feet in front of it.
Oh, that's a big ripped torso.
That would have been about probably 12, 14 feet high.
That's Hercules, right?
Almost certainly. Usually they know that. I think it says on the sign. It says Juno. I would have guessed Venus myself, but lots of bits.
No, that expression's pure Juno. That's Juno looking down at you saying, I can't believe how disappointed I am in humankind.
No, it's I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yeah. More tablets.
Juno was both mad and disappointed, if I remember my mythology.
So more tablets, because like I said, I'm a sucker for a good tablet.
Oh yeah.
I love the fact that they were clearly they did not rough these things out in advance. You get to the right hand edge and you just kind of run out of space and you start melding the letters together in really clever and interesting ornate ways, but they're doing it to make it all fit on the line. I love that. This is a stool. Well, this is a bronze stool from Herculaneum. The cushion is new, but the stool, you feel like you could buy that in a high-end furniture shop today.
Yeah,
incredibly contemporary and almost. They nicked wall paintings back in the days. These are wall paintings that were prized off the walls and are now in the museum.
What am I seeing here?
That I suspect is Janus. There's a.
Where is arms? Where Janus's arms at?
What, his arms? He's a bust on top of a. You know, it's a kind of a trompe l'oeil. There's quite a few trompe l'oeil stuff. That one
and here is
that centaur who is a teacher. I forgot his name, but
the good one.
He taught one of the Greek heroes.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the good
proportions are bizarre on that.
Let's see here.
Look at the sizes of their heads.
Yeah, I think it's Chiron. In fact, the Wikipedia page shows it.
Cool.
Shows this exact same thing you're doing. So let me pull it up, and I will flip over for a second to.
Dang.
And we look at the. Let's see here. The centaur Chiron teaching Achilles how to play the lyre.
Achilles, okay,
yeah,
cool.
From the very thing you're showing. So yeah,
the very same thing.
Yeah.
His head is like twice the size of Achilles' head.
Anyway, so you can look that up,
and hence the 14-foot high abs, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm going to whip through a bunch of these because I was just kind of firing off things. It becomes clear the more that you see. They just had some standard patterns for the statues. If you look at the bloke at the end, and the bloke 2 down, that's a very similar pose. And in fact, yeah, they had generic poses for bodies, and it's kind of, okay, well, we need one of this particular Caesar. All right, we'll knock up his head and we'll put him in armor this time, but use body type C. Fairly standard. It was production line stuff, but at the same time, they're huge, and their presence is enormous. They, sarcophagi, things to be buried in.
Sure.
Hugely ornate. I love this one.
Wow.
That's a Bacchanalian festival,
man.
which says something about the person who was buried there.
Hell yeah.
History does not
Buried
record
me with
who
my
it was.
Mardi Gras beads.
Yeah. That's on the stairwell. That's Athena. That's about 12 feet high. That is enormous. And again, the presence, the sense of just, it looms over you, and you go, okay, yeah, you do not.
Voted goddess least likely to be eroticized in statuary. 1,200 years running.
Yeah, pretty much. And they have the collection of the stuff, the kind of the ornaments from the houses, Roman dice. Interesting thing about Roman dice is they weren't regular, and they didn't try and make them regular because luck was in the hand of the gods. And if everyone was rolling with the same dice, then everyone's probabilities is the same anyway. But yeah, they some of them they tried to be good, but some of them they didn't really. It didn't matter that the dice were clearly not actually cubes.
Well, are those dice made from stone, or are they made
ivory?
from bones?
I think. Bone and ivory, I believe.
Okay. Okay, so because I know some early dice were made out of like knuckle bones, and so
yeah, we've got some of those coming up later on as well. That Patar Pateko. I don't know much about Patar Pateko. Appears to be a dude. Glassware. This is. I mean, they've got loads and loads of glassware. I'm interested in this stuff. This was not free blown. This was blown into molds. So you can repeat.
So they did have molds.
They did have molds. But so it's a mixture of handcrafting it and at the same time molding it. So you can get, here's a set of 6, and they are all almost identical. Big 19th century model of Pompeii. That's just quite cool. These are a bit later, little oil lamps, but you can see some of them are Christian, and the two on the bottom right are Jewish because they've got menorahs on them. Yeah, it was very kind of, it was a very international culture, the Romans.
Wow.
And on the subject of kerning on tablet Roman inscriptions, my God, what is going on here? That first line, the word is tibi, T-I-B-I. It's one word. It's not the T-I-B-I.
All right. Well,
it's all over the shop. The letters are the different shape. The lines are not the same height. I don't know who did this.
Well, every carver had to start somewhere. All right. The apprentice had to get their own work out.
What is the history of kerning? Because I know there was a time before where there was language and printing language and alphabets had been standardized, but they had not yet had the idea that, we'll put spaces between words when we write them. And so everything is just blur, 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 blur.
Yeah.
One big ass
the dots between the words are the word breaks. They didn't really, sometimes they used spaces, but that's essentially the dot is indicating the break in the words. And they used a lot of abbreviations as well, cut stuff down partly to save space. I don't know what that actually says, but it just amused me. More wall paintings. A lot of these kind of vaguely reminiscent of scenes from RPGs, because it's heroic myths. Galleys, remote ruins or remote temples. This is a great one. The fact that somebody had this up on the wall. This is the amphitheater in Pompeii, and it's a specific incident where the Pompeii team of gladiators took on a team from somewhere else, and there was a massive riot, and it spilled out into the streets, and people died, and some bloke has had this painted on the wall of his house to remember it.
This is their Super Bowl poster. He's probably what decayed in the intervening centuries was the tunic he was wearing during the riot, and he's like, see that stain there? That's where I nutted this guy, and he just blood all over my tunic. It was the greatest night of my life.
Yeah, come to our town and yeah, have a good run.
I've seen that before. Yeah,
that's Sappho. That quite famously. That's this couple who had this painted for the for the wall of their house. Going, look how erudite we are. Look, we have books and scrolls and things. And I think she looks worried.
Yeah,
he looks. I'm not comfortable with this book.
I think that was the cover for my high school Latin textbook.
Wow.
Again, it's quite well known.
Yeah.
This one, a lot of we think of the statues as just white marble. They weren't. They were painted. They were decorated. This one still has some of the color remaining on it. You can see. Most of it's gone in the intervening time. This one I absolutely loved because it's completely mad. This is an African scene, except I'll nip to the description. Zoom in. Go back. Scenes with pygmies. Fight with the hippopotamus. Erotic scene during a banquet. Now that's kind of gone. Group that dances around the ibis. Oarsman on the boat loaded with amphorae. What it doesn't mention is the 2 crocodiles that it's fighting. I will zoom in. There we go. It's completely berserk.
Yes. Well, this is if you only heard a crocodile described, the guy who's seen the crocodile is like, okay, it's big, it's green, it's scaly, it'll fuck your ass up, man. Its mouth is so big you can't imagine. It's just a man-eater. It's big.
Not to mention the hippopotamus eating the pygmy. And the pygmy is all in what we'd call a super deformed style these days. The big head, small body stuff. But clearly that's what they thought, or
honestly,
how pygmies were described.
From what I've heard about hippopotamuses, the most deadly animal in Africa, where elephants and lions live. No, the hippopotamus. And then at some point I saw a photo someone had taken of a hippopotamus with its mouth wide open, and you couldn't even tell what it was until you read the caption. You could just tell it was nasty. I'm like, this is a Shoggoth. For the rest of my life, whenever I read the word Shoggoth, I'm gonna picture this thing. What is it? Oh, it's a hippopotamus's mouth. Okay, that tracks.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind with hippopotamuses is that they have very low body fat. Like that entire mass is muscle. So like they are incredibly strong and dense animals.
Yeah.
So
it's how they can walk on the bottom of rivers. There's no fat there. There's no buoyancy. Anyway, love this vase. Finally got to actually see this vase. This is Ajax and Achilles playing. We are not quite sure what game because we're looking at it side on, but they are actually playing a board game.
They were just nerds like us.
They were nerds. Yeah. A lot of game playing. Love this mosaic again. They've got a lot of the mosaic floors. They've nicked the floors. Sure. And there's all these fantastic mythological creatures. The guy in the middle,
Capricorns.
What's he got? Is he cooking pizza? No. Look at the stuff around the edge. He was a builder. That's a builder's hod for carrying bricks up ladders. And he's got his floor decorated with bits of, I build houses and walls, me. Love that one. Ross, I found you. I am aware it's not accurate like this, but it's amused me.
I'll take it.
I think it's Hercules actually, but again, more of these. Just kind of, this is what you'd have on the wall of your villa. These are playing pieces, glass playing pieces, pawns carved out of ivory. More of the same. Those were not coins.
Somewhere there is some billionaire nerd playing Magic the Gathering, but his counters for his cards are like 2,000-year-old Pompeian glass.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
Anyway.
Roskilles.
and Astragals, Knucklebones.
Hey, we got my Knucklebones.
There we go. And this, some of these statues, I hadn't come across this before, but using 2 different styles of stone or 2 different marbles to create this amazing different effect. Pop quiz: who is that good-looking woman with a lyre?
I mean,
it's Apollo. It's Apollo, who is depicted with ridiculously feminine features in almost all the statuary. I looked at that for about 2 minutes and went, surely it's Apollo.
That's like what they like, James.
It's Romans as well. It's, this is not joking. This is carved out of stone. And someone went, yeah, I want to picture up a dog licking its balls.
Look, they love that dog. This is a loved pet. Yeah.
There's quite a few of this stuff. There's a humor to a lot of
also
it.
This is like a sculptor showing off, like, look at what I can do.
I mean, the dynamism of that pose.
Permit me to demonstrate my skill by applying it to this subject. Why don't you try to do something 1/5 as good, depicting a Caesar or maybe Hercules?
Yes.
Meanwhile, I'll
do a statue of Hercules licking his balls.
I don't remember that labor, but all right, yeah.
No, it's the labor they will come to that. Again, another one of these two stone statues. That's a barbarian. You can tell because he has this amazing bushy moustache, which of course none of the Romans would have had. But I love the effect. I love that stone as well.
Yes.
That one's very famous.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, I love that one.
But mosaics, again, they nick a lot of the mosaics. There's a lovely. I love a good memento mori. That's a cartoon. That's clearly it's not meant to be taken seriously. You see very similar skeletal faces like that on, Instagram.
This is the earliest known depiction of Jack Skellington.
Skellington. But again, but the quality of the mosaics can be, that's a mosaic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's just stunning. It's pixel art. It's doing that thing of you stand a bit away and the colors kind of blend and you lose the barriers between them and it looks like a painting. It's and there's quite a few of these. I didn't take her as well. It's and then they have what they call the secret room, which is it's all the porn.
Sure.
Literally, this is the least explicit thing in it, and of course they were very big on phalluses, as you probably know. But there are some very, very explicit works of art on those, often showing the heroes. Lots of quite into big bottoms, but it is explicit stuff. Someone asking, would those statues? I don't know which of the statues would have been painted. To be honest, the guidebook doesn't give any particular indication. We did see a couple of curators actually cleaning one of the big statues, and I wanted to go up and talk to them. My daughter was like, no, Dad, don't be embarrassing. But so they've got all this stuff. They've got the statue of Pan buggering a goat. It's which is as accomplished as that one of the dog licking its balls. It's clearly the sculptor who did it knew their business. Anyway, but more floor mosaics.
And meanwhile, his mom is like, sweetie, have you ever thought about maybe doing a sculpture that was a little bit nicer? Like you could do a nice Hecate or something.
You tell your mom you're doing Augustus Caesar again. Yeah. In the same way that anyone who's drawing smut on the internet is not telling their mom what they're actually doing. And this is a life-size jumping piglet. I just absolutely love this.
Yeah.
It's again, like the dog, it's absolutely spot on. It's so naturalistic. Quite a feat of engineering there. Now, and it turned out that the hotel we were staying in, which was further south than Pompeii, there were two villas literally within walking distance. We were kind of on the edge of a ridge that looked south over what would have been a floodplain. And that two large Roman villas had been built on the edge of this ridge, which had got covered in ash and then, in subsequent eruptions, abandoned after the big eruption and then buried and recently excavated. So we went around those. And the quality of the wall paintings, I suspect these have been restored, possibly with to a slightly finer level than they deserve. But just, these things looking over you as more desserts. And then this is the other, I mentioned trompe-l'oeil. Those are not real pillars. That's a trompe-l'oeil pillar, giving the impression that this room is rather bigger than it is. And those, the sills are not real sills. That's all painted. And it still works. Like, it took me a moment or two to go, oh no, it's not real. Those ones are real, and again, they're being a bit free with the reconstructions. But the moment you put a lid on one of these things, the moment you put a roof on, you suddenly understand it as a house, as a dwelling, which a lot of Pompeii is missing. I love this guy. I absolutely love this guy. I assume he was probably the owner or the owner's son. Just chilling with a book in his house.
Kicking back.
2,000 years ago.
Barely dressed, reading.
And
lo-fi reading your scroll 24/7.
Yeah. And this one as well. So yeah, I would recommend it if you do get a chance to go there. 3 days. Give it 3 days. Take it all in. You will, only by taking in Pompeii and Herculaneum and the museum, do you really get a sense for who these people were and what they liked and what they enjoyed and how they lived. But so much fun and so much rich inspiration for role-playing games as well, whether it's just color background detail for historical games or the sense of how a city would have worked. A lot of the stuff about the bureaucracy and what people did in their day-to-day lives will help bring games and any kind of narrative experience alive. And then I'm going to leap straight on, because today I was at Salute. Salute is I think the UK's biggest tabletop miniatures show, and it's worth mentioning is entirely.
How bonkers was that?
That was quite bonkers. That's just modern. We are descending into chaos. Your license has expired. What license? It doesn't say. Just my license. My license.
Are you pulling up on your end? Okay, yeah. You're right.
So this is from Salute. It's about 6,000 or 7,000 people.
Those are from Pompeii, James.
These are not from Pompeii. These are from Warhammer 40k. Games Workshop had no official presence, but what did have an official presence there was the Titan Owners Club. Titans cost about $1,000. Each one of those stands about a foot high. Some of them stand even higher than that. They are resin cast, done in very limited numbers. And there's a club of people who just and they play Adeptus Titanicus with them. Now, normal Adeptus Titanicus figures are like that, and they play them with those things. That's probably about 35,000, 40,000 pounds worth of miniatures on the floor right there. And their presence, like some of those Roman statues, the first time you see a Titan, you cannot take your eyes off it. They are stunningly impressive pieces of sculpture, and when properly painted, just the potency to them is stunning. I do not know who won the game, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching them move. Every 2 or 3 minutes they move one of the Titans about 4 inches in one direction. So there was that.
Show me with your hands how big they are. Like this?
Like a foot?
The small ones are like that, the medium ones are like that, and then the big ones are like that.
It will be more useful if I can see your lower hand too. Okay.
Tall ones like that. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a brute. Oh,
that's a brute. And then there was this.
This
it's so cool. Somebody did
from the Atari.
Yeah, it's
so you post this on Blue Sky, right?
Yeah, I stuck this up on Blue Sky. It's had over 600 likes so far. It's not BattleTech. What's the word I'm looking for? Battlezone, which I played the hell out of in 1982, and they've done it as a miniatures game. Incredibly simple, but everybody was just stopping and looking. Really, really clever. Apparently, a good game as well. And a lot of people. It's about half trading and half demo tables and games that you can actually play. But people do work for months for what they're bringing along to Salute. Whether it's clever mechanics, there was somebody was running Gorka Morka, the Games Workshop science fiction orc racing game from a few years ago, but they were using the Battle Cars system to do it. British Steve Jackson's tabletop, basically post Car Wars game from 1983, I think. That was cool.
So there are 2 Steve Jacksons in gaming, each of whom has done a game where armed cars shoot each other.
Yep.
Okay.
Why not? And I think Steve Jackson US then... No, he didn't write the Highway Warrior thing for the Fighting Fantasy books, but Steve Jackson US wrote one of the books for Steve Jackson UK's line of solo game books. Starship Trooper, I think.
So they were men.
And there was a lovely huge demo of Laserburn, which was Brian Ansell. Brian Ansell, who basically built the Games Workshop that we know today, co-designed Warhammer 40K. But his first system of miniatures rules was called Laser Burn, and it's a 15mm system. And they had a huge laser burn table. Ansel died a couple of years ago, quite before his time. And so it was a big tribute to him to do this really big laser burn game. And that was really nice to see. Really good tone. It's interesting, not as diverse as role play and board games conventions. It is mostly middle-aged men in heavy metal t-shirts still. More diverse than it used to be, but slow progress.
Part of that, I think, could be just the cost of these games is so much more than RPGs and board games. You're just talking about how you had to spend $1,000 for a Titan. Yeah.
I mean, that's exceptional.
To get into any game at an intense hobby level, there are hoops you've got to jump through. And, there's the hoop of, I got to learn these rules. I got to practice this to the point where I can do it. If it's a minis game, I got to paint my stuff. There are social hurdles as well. There may be that it's like, no, girls don't play this. No, this is not a racially welcoming culture or whatever. That may or may not be in play. But then when you add the one of, and it costs, high 3, 4, low 4 figures to field a competitive army, it's like, that's gonna just razor off a large portion of and it probably makes it very difficult to dabble.
But just to finish off on Salute, there was a fair representation of role play stuff there, a fair amount of board games. But one thing I did spot was Forbidden Psalm, which is it's the Mortal miniatures rules, which seemed very cool from what I could tell. I also like this picture because it's the very good example of the bored girlfriend. I don't know if she was, but I do if it just caught her at a wrong moment. But it is there's the guy in full flow explaining about his beautiful game, and she's like, yeah, okay. In half an hour I can go and get a coffee and phone my friend.
Yeah.
I'm probably doing her a massive service. She may have co-designed it for all I know. It's just the way the photo came out.
It's what it makes me think of is the absolutely best alt text I've ever seen on a picture, and it was a little political. It was Usha Vance, and it's like a picture of JD and Usha Vance. He is in profile wearing a red shirt. She is facing the camera. On her face is the expression of a woman who married the most ambitious man at Yale Law School and who, as a direct consequence of that choice, is now at a Kid Rock concert. And I'm like,
I've seen that picture.
You've seen that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of this game. I've not played it. It's part of a new
Forbidden
trend.
Psalm, you mean? Or
Forbidden Psalm. Because,
or His Majesty the Worm.
I've heard of that as well. But Forbidden Psalm is part of this new trend in wargaming for more narrative focus. We could talk about this in a future episode, but like the idea of creating more storytelling inside of a wargame environment. So it's an interesting new trend I've been following, and I do. And also like miniatures agnostic, you can run them with anything. A lot of games are doing that now. Smaller indie games, but anyways,
yes. But anyway, had a fantastic time at Salute. Saw Patchwork Fez at Salute as well, which is always great.
Is that a little suitcase set where you just pop it up and there's your game setting?
I think so. Yeah,
I believe it is. I think they were selling
what a neat
that.
idea.
Let me go in, because my camera has reasonable resolution. Ooh, yes,
it does look like a little diorama.
That's great.
I don't think it's like a full board set. Like,
hardcover bundle, soft cover bundle. I don't think they're necessarily flogging that, but I think people were certainly stopping and looking at it.
Yeah.
Price list. No, I'm not seeing that attaché case on the price list.
What is the links that Jake Rides Again wants?
Probably the narrative skirmish game stuff. Yeah. So they're I'll talk about it on the Discord, but Anyway, yeah, we're getting some good comments on here, but yeah, we are at an hour. Thank you so much, James, for this.
Sorry, it's me. You know, let me go and you wind me up.
No, I mean it's great stuff.
Yeah,
I loved hearing about Pompeii.
I was in Pompeii for like an afternoon as a college student, but yeah, I think you did a deeper dive and consequently got a lot more out of it than I did.
Well, like I say, I have a 15-year-old who is obsessed with this stuff, and you know, she has a focus in life that I wish I had at that age, or indeed ever. It's like, what do you want to do with your life? It's, I want to study greats at Oxford and become Mary Beard. Okay, that's a life path. Go for it. Yeah. Sadly, there is the Mary Beard job slot is filled by Mary Beard at the moment. So you may have to wait a little while, but
all she has to do is change her name, wait, get close to Mary Beard,
which she would
kill her and devour her heart to absorb her powers.
Now there's the problem, because she is a staunch vegetarian. So
kids these days just don't want to put in the effort. I was going to say, as you Britons are always saying, Bob's your uncle, but no, Bob is not her uncle. It turns out.
No.
For those of you watching, if you are wanting to continue this discussion, go to ludonarrative.com and join our Discord server. And I'll post some links to narrative skirmish games. And we can continue this there.
Yes, and how to defeat Mary Beard and take her powers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the Unknown Armies.
Watching.
yeah, that's the Unknown Armies. I'm working on Black Chrome, our next episode. I should have that out. We should have that out obviously before the end of the month. And we have just recorded. I'm blanking. Jailbreak. We covered Craig too.
My baby.
Yes. Thank you all so much for doing this, but we need to go because we have dinner and things.
It's 11:30
and it's 11:30. James needs to get to sleep. It's been a big day, so
I still got a shower. All right, talk to you later, everybody.
All right, bye everyone.